Hi, I am sitting at home, as you can tell, and not in the garden. And I decided to do a little video in answer to Geoff's question at Brimwood Farm about tips for starting a CSA. We started a CSA 2 years ago during lockdown, year and a half ago during lockdown. Um, and we have done what was supposedly our first full season this year, but it's turned into much more of a second trial season. So, do I have some tips? Yes, I do. Number one, know your members. Depending on where you live and what sort of community you live in and what the people are like around you, people respond to the idea of a CSA very differently. I have seen people promote a new CSA and get 50 members at the drop of the hat for £15 a week, and at the beginning of the season their share is a bunch of parsley and 2 radishes, and everyone's fine, everyone's super happy. It's not been like that for us around here. We've struggled to get small numbers of members to convince people of the idea, and we've had to keep the box value at, it's varied a bit because it will, but I honestly don't think we would get away with that level. We have not had to buy in much this year, but we have had to buy in some to keep the boxes up at what we'd call an acceptable level. So number two is to decide whether you're going to do that, whether you're going to buy some things in if the going gets tough. And if you are, make sure your members are aware from the outset. We have had people be very surprised and disappointed at the idea that the CSA might buy in some wholesale, and at the same time expect to have a big bulging box full of lovely fresh seasonal veg week in and week out, as if we were incapable of any form of misjudgment or mistake or weather condition or anything. And obviously that's not true. So if you are going to be a hardline CSA, never buy anything in. And if there comes a week when all there is 3 spring onions, a radish and 4 leaves of something, then you need to tell them at the outset. Make sure they know and make sure they're happy. If, on the other hand, you're going to share out the goodies, but if the week comes when you think, oh, there's really not much, you are going to buy in some from wholesale, make sure they know from the start, put it in your contract or your guidelines or your rules or whatever, that you will on occasion, like most CSAs, be buying in wholesale. We undertake to buy in wholesale only organic and only from the UK, but we do sometimes have to buy in wholesale. Number three, decide what you're going to do about collections or deliveries. In our first year, given that we were in lockdown, my gorgeous daughter, who was on furlough at the time, arranged for people to pick their boxes up from the field. We didn't have a packing shed or a collection shed, and we still don't. And it was hard. They had to come, and especially during lockdown, to avoid COVID, they had to come in 15-minute slots, and she would spend 3 hours sitting under a gazebo by the gate on a Thursday. And I think nearly every Thursday that year, although it was a glorious year, the weather was beautiful, but every Thursday it rained at box collection time. She didn't have anything else to do, and that was okay, but we don't live on site, so it's not like you can just knock at our door, and even if you could, that would be kind of awkward. If you've got a good collection point with good access and you don't mind people dropping in whenever, then they can collect. Our ideal has always been that they would collect from a central point. So we had 2 shops in town who were willing to be a collection point. First year we had 3 people who collected from one of them. Second year, none at all. And so the third option is deliveries. This year we opted to include delivery to within our own postcode, at free with the basic price of the box, and literally everyone has had deliveries. Now that leaves you in control of how and when they go out, but the job gets bigger the more people you get, obviously, and I don't actually enjoy delivering, something I will want to outsource as quickly as I possibly could. So make up your mind early on how you want them to collect or be delivered. Sort of ties in a little bit back to number one. If you've got some massively committed people who think that the CSA is the best thing since sliced bread. They will play along. They will do whatever you want them to do. But if you're trying to convince them, if you're trying to sell this, and really what they just want is some veg to arrive on their doorstep, it might be a little harder to talk them into an alternative method of distribution. So definitely know how you intend for them to get hold of their veg. Number four is, I would say, limit your palette. Now, if you read the literature, you will find that it's generally accepted by the likes of Curtis Stone or Jean-Martin Fortier, all the gurus on this subject, that CSA requires the widest selection of crops of all the models. If you're only going to do farmers markets or restaurants, you can limit your palette considerably. You can just do things that grow quickly, things that have a quick turnaround, things that are low maintenance, things you can really limit what you do. If you do a CSA, you have to be more varied because you're trying to give people a bigger variety in their box every week. However, you can go too far. And if you're trying to produce 15 different kinds of tomatoes and 14 different kinds of lettuce and all these different varieties, lovely as they are, all these gorgeous heritage varieties, you can get very tied up. And especially at first, my sowing schedules haven't been as good as they should have been because I simply didn't have the experience really in producing to scale and producing to time to grow 15 different types of tomatoes. Now, by all means, grow 3 or 4. By all means, grow, a yellow one and an orange one, as well as 2 reliable reds, one big one, one little one. But don't go mad, particularly in the early years. Figure out what you're going to put in your box and don't grow extra crops just for the fun of it, just for extra. So yeah, limit your palette, decide what it is you're going to sell. I didn't even attempt to grow potatoes this year. Potatoes don't grow well for us. I don't think I would attempt to grow potatoes again now unless and until I was growing at scale with machinery. So that is one of the things that we wholesale in. Just make decisions about what you can grow and what you can't grow, and don't try to grow absolutely everything under the sun. And number 5, my last one, is communicate. Try to talk to people. I send out a weekly newsletter before the box goes out. Early in the season, I was telling them what was going to be in the box. We could make suggestions about what you do with what's in the box. You can explain some of the things that are in the box. You can talk about general stuff going on farm that isn't related to the box. There are all sorts of different ways you can go. At the same time, you have to make a decision in terms of communication on how much tailoring you will do, and that is very hard. It's all right when one person who you know personally says, oh, do you know what, I can't actually eat onions, could I have a courgette instead of an onion? And that's fine. But as it gets bigger and there are more people, you can't do that. You have to know what the deal is, how much you can change things for people, and if you can't, you can't. They just have to give the things they don't want to a friend. That's kind of how it works. Again, that goes right back to number 1, and knowing your people. How committed are they? How brilliant of an idea do they think it is? Because if they're right behind you, they won't mind. They'll take the thing that they don't actually like or can't actually eat, and they'll give it to a neighbour along with your business card saying, this is a fabulous scheme, why don't you join? If they're just expecting you to be a well-known organic vegetable delivery company and no different, and haven't engaged at all in the local nature of it, in the supporting you as growers nature of it, not so much. So there you go. Those are my top 5 tips. I could come up with another 5 as easy as you like, and perhaps I will one day. But those are my top 5 just to help out Geoff and anyone else who's thinking of starting a CSA.